Desperate Millionaire reveals his surprising chat with the cleaning lady who changed everything. Jack Thompson stood in his luxurious penthouse, the city skyline illuminated against the evening sky. The glimmering lights of Manhattan echoed the success he had built, but within him stirred an unsettling emptiness. Each trophy and accolade, like the enormous plaque for being one of the top tech innovators, felt distorted, superficial. He had risen to the top, yet the weight of his achievements sat heavily on his shoulders. The frantic pace of ambition that had once driven him was now a relentless tide, pulling him further from family, community, and meaning. He glanced at a framed picture of his children, faces brimming with joy. A hollow pit opened in his stomach. He still had them, but the distance had grown unbearable. The merger looming over his company threatened more than just the layoffs of hundreds of employees. It rattled his core principles, driving wedges between his ambitions and the values he had once cherished. Every Wednesday, Maria, his cleaning lady, entered with the sunlight, carrying a spirit that seemed to dismantle his gilded solitude. Her laughter, loud, real, welcomed him, breaking through the sterile silence of his high-tech haven. They discussed everything, from the weather to Maria's stories of home, of coming to America, the resilience that has kept her moving through life's obstacles. "Jack," she once said, her eyes fierce yet warm, "you cannot find happiness in a paycheck. Look around you, life is in the connections, in the people." Her voice resonated, sparking something deep inside Jack. He stared at the skyline, the tantalizing ambition of his firm before him. But now, Maria's words echoed louder. Satisfaction ran deeper than wealth. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now, let's continue. A fierce internal tug-of-war began within him. Could he prioritize his success while the merger edged closer? Maria's laughter became his anchor. Her stories illuminated his blind spots. She faced hardship yet rejoiced in small victories, insisting joy lay in togetherness, in the bonds that fortified her spirit. Yet, as the merger became a tangible threat to his workforce, so did his ethical resolve waver. With every strategic plan sketched out in his office, the faces of employees, men and women who had dedicated years of service, flashed before him. He felt like a chess piece in a game where others lost their livelihoods. Weeks passed, leaving Jack in a haze of ambition and conscience. His trusted colleague, Mark, suddenly revealed ulterior motives, spouting self-centered goals masked as business strategy, shattering Jack's fragile vision for a fair outcome. The betrayal stung, igniting his fear of losing everything, right down to the community he had neglected in pursuit of success. There he stood, alone in the penthouse that felt increasingly like a cage, caught between ambition and integrity. Maria's words echoed relentlessly in his mind. What kind of leader did he want to be? As the reality of his impending decisions loomed, he faced the bitter realization that self-fulfillment might come at a cost greater than he ever anticipated. With a quivering breath, Jack knew he was on the brink, teetering toward a choice that would redefine everything. Yet, the deeper he delved into Maria's insights, the more he craved to uncover the hidden layers of her life, a revelation that might just hold the key to his fractured sense of purpose. Jack paced the marble floor of his penthouse, the skyline's bright lights blurring with the tumult of thoughts racing through his mind. The cold glass of the window felt like a barrier between him and the decisions that awaited, each reflection a reminder of the person he had become, a man who prioritized ambition over humanity. He recalled the warmth in Maria's eyes when she spoke of her hopes, of the community she missed. It was a stark contrast to the corporate machine he was part of, one he had helped fuel into existence. Tonight, the weight of his waiting decisions hollowed him out further. What would be his legacy? Would he be known as the driven CEO who cut costs to secure a financial boom, or the man who sacrificed people for profit? The deeper he explored these questions, the more urgent the need to act became. He flipped through the digital portfolio of the merger, statistics swimming before him, numbers that represented lives hanging in the balance that he hesitated before contacting his executive team. Would they side with him or with Mark, who had positioned himself as the ruthless business strategist? Could he communicate his need for a more humane approach? Jack clenched his fists, feeling the hard edges of that choice. If he confronted Mark, it would require reopening conversations with shareholders, potentially risking everything he had worked for. The prospect of backlash hung like a storm cloud over his thoughts. In this haze of uncertainty, he recalled another lesson from Maria. Jack, life will always test you. The true measure is how you respond. The authenticity in her voice propelled him toward a decision. He picked up his phone and dialed a number he had almost lost touch with his children. As the line rang, he feared the possibility of their disappointment, knowing their father was not present in the ways that mattered most. Dad! Their voices broke through the barriers he deconstructed. Instantly, Jack felt the warmth of their affection, a beacon cutting through the fog of self-doubt. After a brief exchange of pleasantries, he voiced his concerns, expressing how much he missed them. There was a profound clarity in hearing their small worries, their laughter igniting a sense of purpose within him. Come home, his daughter suggested with a conviction that echoed Maria's wisdom. We can make cookies and watch movies just like old times. As he hung up, the seed of another realization sprouted. If he truly wanted to change, it had to start with him. At that moment, he resolved to confront Mark, not just for his employees, but to restore the fabric of connection he had so disregarded. He decalled for a meeting, and in it, he would redefine what success truly meant beneath the glossy surface of financial prowess. After composing an email to his team, he took a deep breath. The room felt lighter. Clarity replaced the chaos. The confrontation with Mark would indeed be challenging, but this was no longer merely about business metrics. It was about values that needed to be resurrected. Jack glanced out at the twinkling skyline and felt a flicker of hope. It was time to rediscover the leader he once aspired to be, not just in his own eyes, but in the eyes of those he impacted. Yet as the words to his message solidified, the ensuing direct confrontation loomed ominously. The stakes fell high, and the uncertainty of Mark's response was a deep-seated shadow in his mind. He shivered, realizing that this encounter could lead to unforeseen ramifications. As the meeting approached, one daunting truth remained. He was stepping into a crucible where ambition clashed with authenticity, and the outcome could redefine not only his career, but who he was at his core. But in moving toward clarity, he had unknowingly set the stage for a more profound revelation. Would he truly have the resolve to fight for his vision, or would the corporate machine snuff out his newfound determination before it could manifest? Jack leaned back in his chair, staring at the screen, the blinking cursor mocking his readiness. He felt both anticipation and regret intertwining within him, each heartbeat echoing the weight of his impending confrontation with Mark. The decision wasn't merely a professional pivot, it was a reckoning. He had to embrace a leadership philosophy that considered the human element a stark departure from the cutthroat strategies that had become the definition of success in his world. The next morning, the atmosphere in the conference room was electric. His executive team shuffled uneasily in their seats, casting sideways glances at him and one another, the unspoken tension palpable. Jack could see Mark's confident posture, arms crossed, an imperious smile edging his lips. This was a man who thrived in this arena of ruthless competition, a man who had built a reputation on silencing dissenting voices. But today, there was no room for silence. "Thank you all for coming," Jack began, his voice steady, cutting through the static uncertainty like a knife. "I want to talk about the merger, but more importantly, about our values and the culture we want to foster going forward." He watched as the expressions around the table shifted puzzlement, skepticism before he pressed on. I've had a lot of time to reflect on what success means. It's more than revenue. It's about the people who contribute to those numbers and the communities we impact. Before Mark could leap in with an objection, Jack continued, "The data we've seen about the potential layoffs is alarming. It isn't just a gain-loss calculation. Those are lives we're talking about." He paused, allowing his words to settle. Attempting to gauge the reactions of his team, he felt a thrilling rush of vulnerability. This wasn't TA performance. It was a declaration of the leader he aspired to be, though uncertainty still clawed at his mind. Mark finally interjected, a frown pulling at his mouth. "Jack, this is corporate America. Decisions like this are what keep us competitive. You can't let sentiment dictate your strategy." By repeating their ingrained corporate language, Jack recognized how far Mark had entrenched himself in the very world he was trying to change. It infuriated him, but also fueled his determination. "Don't you see?" Jack replied, leaning forward, already feeling the heat of adrenaline. "The world is changing. Consumers are more aware. Shareholders are more engaged. If we don't adapt, we risk not just financial failure, but our reputation too. Our responsibility is to the people we lead, not just those in the boardroom." The room fell silent. Jack's heart raced as each face around the table processed his words. "I propose that we delay the merger and start conversations with our employees. Let us reassess our priorities, create a strategy that values empathy without sacrificing our financial goals." As he spoke, he felt a surge of clarity as if he were breaking through a murky fog. Mark's expression darkened, a battle brewing in his eyes. "You're risking everything for an ideal that doesn't align with our market strategy." Jack took a deep breath. What is everything worth if we lose our humanity in pursuit of it? Silence enveloped the room again, and instead of succumbing to anxiety, he felt burgeoning confidence. This was the first step toward reclaiming his values, and whatever the outcome, he wouldn't retreat. The pain of potential backlash lingered, but it was dwarfed by the urgency to redefine what success meant to him. As he observed the reaction, some intrigued, others uncomfortable, Jack saw the path ahead splintering like the very corporate landscape he sought to navigate. Would the team tree align with the vision of a more compassionate enterprise, or would Mark's grip squeeze tighter, stifling Jack's voice? In that moment of uncertainty, clarity struck. He understood that this was no longer just about the merger, it was about the kind of leader he wished to be. The true test lay ahead. Would he succeed in rallying support for a humane approach, or would Mark's resistance tear down the bridge he was trying to build? The stakes had never felt higher, and as Mark's lips curled into a defiant smile, Jack knew he was not just contesting a merger, but a battle for the soul of his company. The moment of clarity surged within him, signaling his resolve to fight for this vision, even if it meant leveling with the harshest of consequences. What ramifications would follow from that defining stand? And would he be prepared when the storm finally broke? Jack emerged from the conference room, adrenaline still coursing through his veins. The weight of his words hung in the air, swirling with the palpable tension that remained in the room. He felt raw but oddly invigorated. The team's reactions were mixed, and he couldn't shake the vision of Mark's defiant smile. It was a bitter reminder of the uphill battle he faced. As Jack wandered the halls, he replayed the meeting in his mind. Every word, every pause, echoed louder in his head. The thrill of standing up for his beliefs clashed with the nagging reality of potential failure. Just outside his office, he passed the janitorial staff and exchanged quiet nods with Linda, the cleaning lady. Her work often went unnoticed, an invisible thread in the organization's fabric. Yet today, her presence ignited a flicker of something deeper within him. "What do you think, Linda?" he asked as she paused with her mop in hand. She looked up, a hint of surprise on her face. "About what, sir?" "About the merger and layoffs. What do you think we should focus on?" Her brow furrowed, considering. "Well, sir, I believe everyone matters, even those who clean the floors. You all may see numbers, but I see the people behind those numbers. That factory needs workers who feel valued. "It makes a difference," she replied, her voice steady. Her perspective struck him. Jack had spent the day grappling with corporate strategies and financial impacts. Yet here was a woman who cut through the clutter with a clear, unwavering truth. "You're right. It's easy to forget when you're caught up in the big picture." Linda shrugged but smiled, a twinkle in her eye. "You seem like you're trying to find a new way, and I respect that. Just don't lose sight of the people." Feeling a surge of motivation, he thanked her and stepped back into his office. He realized he couldn't just contend with Mark's threats. He needed to build a coalition. Those who shared his vision, who understood the value of elevating the human element within the company, might be few, but they were crucial. Jack began drafting an email to his team, inviting them to a brainstorming session. It would be an informal gathering over coffee, a chance for everyone to explore how the company's values could shift toward a more humane business model. As he typed, doubts crept in. Would anyone even attend? Then he recalled the passion he felt when speaking up in the meeting. That wasn't just a wave of defiance. It was the dawning of change. He hit send, setting in motion a ripple he hoped would grow in the days that followed. Jack prepared for pushback. The executive board was not succumbing easily. He caught snippets of conversations filtered through the thick glass of his office. Mark was stirring dissent, warning the team of potential upheaval if Jack's ideas gained traction. This was precisely what Jack had anticipated, and while stress gnawed at him, he also recognized it as an opportunity to prove his worth as a leader. He needed to not only withstand Mark's opposition, but to rally those who supported compassion over cold calculations. Just before the brainstorming session, he paced the room, rehearsing the points he wanted to address. How could he inspire a room filled with skeptics, those who had been molded by years of profit-driven rhetoric? The clock ticked down, building the urgency that mirrored his racing heart. When the meeting finally began, he faced a mixed audience. Curiosity threaded through some expressions. Skepticism marked others. But he saw the flicker of hope reflected in a few faces, like a candle flickering against the darkness. Jack was ready to ignite that spark into a flame. He opened with compelling stories and statistics about employee morale impacting productivity. He felt the energy shift. Ideas were exchanged. Laughter erupted over shared frustrations. And for the first time in a long time, the room buzzed with engagement. And then, just as he thought momentum was on his side, Mark stormed in, arms crossed, and a glare fixed on Jack. "We need to talk about the direction this meeting is taking," he announced, his tone low and icy. The fight was on. Would Jack's vision endure, or would Mark's heavy hand stifle the momentum he had worked so hard to build? The stakes were rising, and Jack felt the fierce determination solidifying within him. He was up against not just Mark's authority, but the ingrained attitudes of his own team. We find a way to carry them through or face defeat. The moment of truth was looming. Jack's mind raced as Mark's imposing figure filled the doorway, an unwelcome interruption in the fragile moment of connection he had fostered within the room. He could feel the collective tension swell as Mark's presence overshadowed the energy they had begun to build. It was as if the air thickened, the promise of change hanging precariously on a thread, ready to snap. "Mark, we're just discussing ideas to better engage our teams," Jack replied, striving for calm despite the pulse of anxiety in his throat. His voice carried a hint of challenge, but he recognized the risk of escalating Mark's antagonistic demeanor. He needed both courage and strategy to counter Mark's intimidating presence. "We're discussing how to maintain profitability, not some touchy-feely concept of employee engagement," Mark shot back, dismissing Jack's attempts with a wave of his hand that left a cold draft in its wake. He surveyed the team, imposing his dominance. "You all need to focus on what's practical here." Jack grew conscious of several eyes darting between him and Mark, gauging the unfolding confrontation. He considered the responsibility weighing on him, not just his own aspirations, but the hopes and doubts of everyone gathered. As he glanced around the room, he spotted that flicker of hope again, the subtle nods of a few colleagues receptive to his message. "What if we could marry profitability with employee morale?" Jack proposed, channeling his determination into his voice. What if improving morale not only kept workers happy, but also increased retention and productivity? Mark leaned in, challenging Jack with a cold stare. And what if it doesn't, T? What if we just lose money? A murmur resonated through the room, underscoring the unease. Jack sensed the skepticism bubbling beneath the surface, yet he couldn't back down now. The time had come to push deeper into this confrontation, not with cheap slogans and hope, but with reason. Research shows that companies recognized for strong employee engagement outperform their competitors, Jack asserted, recalling the statistics. Yes, we may face weeks of adjustment, but in the long run, prioritizing our people can lead to financial success. Linda S. Wright. Everyone in this company deserves to feel valued, from the corner office to the janitor's closet. Mark S. expression twisted into a steely glare, but Jack pressed on, feeling the rush of his conviction solidify into a palpable force. This isn't about eliminating profit. It's about redefining how we achieve it. We have a unique chance to stand out and become a model for a new way of leadership in this industry. That, Jack thought, was something worth fighting for. However, Mark wasn't ready to relent. You think shouting statistics and changing the narrative in a meeting will turn the tide? You're fooling yourself, Jack. Ideas like yours crumble when faced with financial reality. His voice dripped with condescension, and Jack fought the impulse to respond in kind. Maybe, Jack replied, feeling the heat of determination gathering in his chest. But what I do know is that financial reality doesn't mean we have to ignore the worth of our people. The heart of this company isn't just numbers on a spreadsheet. It's the individuals who bring those numbers to life. With each word, Jack felt the stakes elevate. He was confronting not only Mark, but the very corporate culture he wanted to change. Mark's mission was to maintain the status quo, while Jack's was to challenge it. It was a volatile clash of ideals, and the outcome hinged on whether he could articulate his vision with the tenacity needed to sway the room. I'll tell you this, Mark, Jack's voice steadied, cutting through the tension. If you only see this as a profit and loss exercise, we're bound to fail. Real success comes from valuing every layer of our organization. Mark scoffed, his frustration palpable. Jack could feel the distance narrowing. Despite Mark's icy demeanor, he sensed the wavering confidence of his opponent. Was Mark beginning to falter? That thrill of possibility coursed through Jack, and he leaned into it. The question loomed, could he capitalize on this momentary advantage to cement the support of his colleagues, pushing them to truly embrace the change he was advocating? The rhythm of the room had shifted ever so slightly, but would it be enough? Jack made his decision in that heartbeat. I propose we measure engagement and profitability together. Let us create a committee to explore this. An audacious move, but one that might just serve as a turning point against the tide. Murmurs spread among the team. Jack felt a growing resolve. They needed reassurance, a plan. Could they stand together? He turned his attention to the team, gauging their reactions and looking for allies. The unexpected camaraderie felt like a spark against Mark's shadow, and Jack stood rooted, determined not to let the moment slip away just yet. But could he sustain this newfound momentum in the face of Mark's entrenched influence? The next chapter was unfolding, and Jack braced himself he would either emerge victorious or face the daunting reality of failure. But beneath the doubt, another question simmered. What would he become in the process? The room hummed with tension as Jack awaited the team's response. Every glance exchanged between his colleagues felt charged with implications. Some showed support while others revealed hesitation. Jack shifted his weight, grounding himself in the moment, recognizing this was not merely a battle against Mark, but a definitive crossroads in his professional journey. He could feel the sweat bead on his forehead, but he refused to wipe it away. This was not just about convincing Mark or the room. This was about instilling confidence in himself, about stepping into a leadership role that had long been dictated by others. In that instant, he realized that whether or not his colleagues rallied around his vision, the act of voicing it had ignited a fierce determination within him. Let us take a vote, Linda chimed in, breaking the spell of silence, her brow furrowed with a mix of anxiety and hope. If we can agree on this committee, perhaps we can show Mark the proof he needs to see the value in these ideas. Mark's eyes narrowed. The prospect of a vote had shifted dynamics, and Jack seized the opportunity. Exactly. If employee engagement can drive results, we should be able to measure its effects. Let us make a case for this beyond just numbers, he said, feeling the momentum shift in his favor. Mark shrugged off Linda's proposal, his posture still defensive. So, you want to waste time on a committee instead of focusing on the bottom line? Forget it. Jack's heart raced. Mark's dismissal was a challenge, but perhaps that was his opening. We can't afford to disregard the human element in this equation, Mark. A successful business isn't just about profits. It's about the people creating those profits. Now it was Mark's turn to pause, taken aback by the fervor behind Jack's words. Jack took a breath, allowing a strategy to form. He had spent years navigating company culture, often as an observer rather than a participant. But today, he felt the flicker of potential transformation. Could he confront this deeply rooted corporate mentality with his own emerging voice? "I'm willing to put my career on the line for this," he declared, the words spilling forth before he could rethink them. This wasn't mere ambition. It was a revelation of his own stake in the matter. Jack could no longer stand idly by, waiting for someone else to advocate for change. His colleagues began to stir, exchanging looks of curiosity and concern. "If we really are serious about transforming this place into something better, we need to unite," Jack continued. "And I think I'm not the only one who believes it's time for a shift, not only for the leadership, but for all levels of our company." "I don't like this, Jack," Mark warned, his tone now tinged with genuine unease. "Don't bargain with futures you don't control." The unyielding aura of Mark began to clash with the energy building behind Jack, fueled by a sudden sense of purpose. Jack's sense of self began to expand, slowly displacing the fears and doubts he had carried for too long. "Well then, if you're so sure of your way, let's put it to the test," Jack snapped, defying the instinctual urge to back down. "I want to see if you truly believe in your model. We can start tonight. Let us put this conversation where it belongs, on our quarterly report. If we don't grow, I'll take full responsibility." Behind him, Jack felt the weight of his colleagues' expectations rising like a tide. Mark's expression flared with fury, but there was something else: uncertainty. Jack knew he was taking a risk, but this was the only way he could redirect the course of the meeting. "Fine," Mark replied, his voice low. "You'll regret this." As Mark stormed out, Jack felt an exhilarating blend of fear and elation that coursed through his body. He turned, locking eyes with Linda and a few others, sensing a shift in their belief systems as they leaned in closer. "Jack, you really did it," she breathed, admiration sparking in her gaze. "Did I?" he replied, surprised by the weight of his own affirmation. "Or did we?" The stakes had never felt higher, but as Jack processed the unfolding events, a nagging thought lingered at the back of his mind. Was he truly ready for the repercussions of this gambit? The next phase of his challenge was upon him, a deeper exploration of whether he could inspire genuine transformation among his peers while grappling with the possibility of facing Mark again. What would he discover, not just about the company, but about himself? Jack spent the remainder of the day spiraling through a whirlwind of emotions, chiefly self-doubt intertwined with a newfound zeal. Each email he sent and each conversation he had felt like it was suffused with the energy he had summoned in that tense meeting. Yet, as the hours ticked by, the initial high began to fade, revealing the daunting weight of what he had set in motion. As twilight crept in, he encountered Linda in the break room. Her smile was genuine, but Jack could sense the apprehension buried beneath it. "So what's next?" she asked, her voice a hushed mix of excitement and fear. Jack paused, reflecting on the enormity of the commitment he had just made. "We start building that committee. We need to define our goals. More than that, we need to galvanize the team." "Do you really think Mark will let this slide?" she pressed, shooting him a sideways glance that hinted at her skepticism. "I don't know," Jack admitted, the uncertainty running cold through him. "But I have to believe we can change the narrative here." It's time for a new direction. Her features softened. A rare look crossed her face, an infusion of trust. You know I'm in. Just don't forget the risks. Risks, Jack echoed, feeling the gravity of the words settle around him. He wondered if he truly understood the lengths to which Mark might go to thwart his initiative. With an expectant sigh, he resolved that the following day would require a one that would not only unify their colleagues, but also instill the confidence needed to confront Mark again. That night, Jack sat with a notebook at his kitchen table, scribbling ideas and strategies. The ticking clock punctuated the silence, each tick heightening his anxiety. What kind of manager would he be? Was he equipped to lead this initiative? As he dissected his thoughts, flashes of self-doubt wormed their way back into his mind, undermining the excitement he had felt earlier. The walk around the block cleared his head slightly. Under the pale glow of the streetlights, he grappled internally with a realization. Every bit of courage he had mustered was tethered to his responsibility to others, not just himself. He thought of Linda, his team, even Mark, who had unwittingly given him this opportunity to rise. It crystallized for him his professional development would involve not only pushing for change, but also understanding the people involved. The next day unfolded in a blur of meetings and discussions, with Jack at the helm. With Linda's encouragement, he invited colleagues to share their thoughts on creating a robust system of engagement. There was an overwhelming sense of wanting, even from those who initially seemed disinterested. Jack could feel their collective energy propelling him forward. Conversations took on a life of their own. Ideas emerged, and suddenly, it felt less like a solitary endeavor. During lunch, Jack overheard a couple of team members discussing the pressure Mark had been under, which struck him with unexpected empathy. He had seen Mark as simply an adversary, someone to confront. Now, he began to consider the ways corporate culture had perhaps stifled even the most ambitious of leaders. Jack challenged himself to understand Mark's perspective. It might prove essential to negotiating the rocky road ahead. And on the following day, Jack finally summoned the courage to request a one-on-one meeting with Mark. What if he approached their next confrontation with a mindset of collaboration instead of conflict? The idea was risky, but it reflected his evolving perspective. However, as the clock inched toward their appointment, Jack couldn't shake the sense that this meeting could either launch his vision or obliterate it. The moment had arrived. How could he harness his new resolve to engage Mark constructively? As he stood outside Mark's office, every fiber of his being buzzed with the realization that this meeting would potentially redefine not just his professional future, but also his personal journey. Would he emerge empowered, or would he walk away, leaving everything he had fought for behind? Jack took a deep breath, steadying himself in front of Mark's door. The air felt charged with possibility, each moment stretching into uncertainty. He raised his hand to knock, but hesitated, recalling the tension of their previous encounters. This was not just a conversation, it was a pivot point. He needed to shift the narrative from adversarial to collaborative. Pushing the door open, he found Mark staring at a spreadsheet on his computer. The room pulsated with a quiet intensity, and Jack's heart raced as he stepped inside, closing the door behind him. "Jack," Mark greeted, barely looking up, his tone suggesting ambivalence. Jack fought to suppress the knot in his stomach. "Thanks for meeting with me," Jack began, his voice steady, though he could feel the tremor underneath. "I wanted to discuss the new initiatives and how we could drive them forward together." Mark leaned back, finally making eye contact. "I'm listening, but I hope you're not expecting me to just roll over, Jack." The challenge was clear. The years of corporate politics hung in the air like heavy fog. "I don't expect that at all," Jack replied, his determination sharpening his focus. "In fact, I believe your experience is crucial in shaping these ideas into something that works for everyone. We can create a system that not only pushes for innovation, but also brings the team together." Mark raised an eyebrow, skepticism mingling with intrigue. "And what makes you think I'm interested in anyone else's vision right now? This isn't just about you or me, Jack. It's about the bottom line." Jack felt the pressure mounting, but he pressed on. "Exactly. And I think that by aligning our goals, we can improve productivity and morale simultaneously. I've seen what the team is capable of when they're motivated and engaged. But I need your support to make it happen." A flicker of surprise crossed Mark's face. For the first time, there seemed to be a crack in his armor. Jack leaned into this small victory, feeling emboldened. Let us work together, redefine our approach. I know the pressure you are under to deliver, but what if we make this about more than just numbers? There is a way to lead through collaboration rather than fear. I've been running things a certain way for a long time, Jack, Mark responded, his expression stealing again. Trust isn't something you earn overnight. Then let us start building that trust, Jack countered, his voice gaining strength. I want to show you that I'm committed to this vision. I believe in what we can accomplish together. For what felt like an eternity, silence filled the room, thick with tension and possibility. Jack could see that Mark was calculating, weighing his response carefully. He recognized the man not just as a rival, but as a reflection of what years in that role could do to mold someone into a figure who played for safety rather than innovation. Eventually, Mark sighed, leaning forward. What do you propose? Jack's pulse quickened. This was at the moment he had envisioned, grasping an opportunity not just to confront but to collaborate. Let us identify key stakeholders, gather their input, and develop a pilot plan for this initiative. We can present an outline to leadership, showing them how it aligns with overall objectives. Mark rubbed his temple, conflicted. You might be onto something, but it still feels risky. Every path forward carries risk, Jack replied. The real question is whether we can mitigate those risks together. Let us stop working in silos and find a way to unify our approach. Just as he felt a flicker of hope, Mark's phone buzzed, cutting through the moment. Mark glanced at it, tension etching on his brow. I can't afford mistakes, Jack. If this goes south, it'll be on both our heads. Then let us ensure it doesn't, Jack replied, although doubt crept in. His belief began to falter as he considered the enormity of the task ahead. Mark leaned back again, his expression clouded, lost in thought. Fine. Let us see how serious you are about this. I'll need a proposal by the end of the week. I'll make it happen, Jack said, his determination rekindled. As he left Mark's office, a mix of exhilaration and dread cascaded through him. He had secured a tentative opening, but at what cost? Now that he had a foothold, he needed to climb higher without losing his grip. That night, Jack sat at his kitchen table again, but this time the silence felt different. He was on a precipice, a daunting challenge that demanded not just strategy, but adaptability and resilience. Would he be able to navigate this new relationship with Mark without losing his vision? And how would he leverage the trust he was trying to build with his team while balancing the weight of expectation? The urgency of his next steps hung in the air like smoke, thick and overwhelming. Jack knew he couldn't afford to falter now. He had embarked on a journey toward personal growth and professional change. But as he prepared for the challenges ahead, a nagging question lingered in the back of his mind. Could he truly evolve, or would he become another casualty in the corporate landscape? Jack awoke the next morning, adrenaline coursing through him as he recalled the conversation with Mark. This was more than a proposal now. It was his chance to redefine his career path and validate his capabilities to himself and the team. He had to seize this moment, grappling with a mixture of excitement and anxiety. Sipping his coffee, he grabbed his notebook, flipping through pages of thoughts and ideas he had previously set aside. A sense of urgency crescendoed within him. He had only days to craft a strategy that not only appealed to Mark, but also resonated deeply with the stakeholders. He pondered the intricacies of effective communication and how past failures had often stemmed from misunderstandings. Jack needed to articulate his vision clearly and effectively. As he settled at his workspace, his phone buzzed with a message from Lisa, his colleague. Need to talk about the project later. Can we meet before lunch? A sense of foreboding washed over him. Would Lisa share Mark's skepticism, or was she holding back feedback that could help shape his proposal? After a deep breath, he replied affirmatively. He'd welcome her insights. Interactions with his team had always been something he valued, but they felt more vital now, a nexus point from which his future direction would emanate. The clock ticked down to their meeting, and Jack felt a rush of anticipation mixed with apprehension. When they met, Lisa's demeanor was thoughtful, contemplative. "Jack, I heard you're working on something with Mark," she began, her gaze steady but scrutinizing. "I know the dynamics between you two can be challenging." "Yeah, I guess you could say that," Jack replied, easing into the conversation. He noticed how tightly she held her coffee mug, as if it were a lifeline. "I need this to work, Lisa. I truly believe we can change things for the better." She leaned back, assessing him. "What are you aiming for? You know how Mark is more numbers, less vision. You'll need something solid." Jack locked onto her challenge with conviction. "I want to create a pilot program that focuses on engagement, something that illustrates clear benefits to productivity and morale. If we could show tangible results, it could convince Mark." Lisa's expression softened. "That could work, but you should consider the metrics that are most important to him. What if you framed it in a way that highlights not just output, but the overall health of the team?" He could feel the gears turning in his mind, Lisa's insights illuminating a clearer path. It clicked. If he presented the initiative with a dual focus supporting both performance and employee satisfaction, he could appeal to both Mark S. and the company's core values. "You're right. I hadn't been thinking about metrics in that way," he said, exhilaration sparking within him. "What if we included benchmarks for success that address both aspects? This could be my way of building trust with the team and with Mark." The conversation energized him, almost clearing a smoky haze from his thoughts. Jack realized that he wasn't just crafting a proposal, but recalibrating his place within the corporate hierarchy. He felt empowered, ready to enlist his colleagues as allies rather than obstacles. After the meeting, renewed determination pulsed through him. He spent hours refining his ideas, creating charts and graphs, envisioning how to present them to Mark. He felt a new level of clarity. Just as his momentum peaked, a troubling thought emerged. Would Mark accept this new approach, or would he revert to his old ways of dismissing innovation? The risk weighed heavy on Jack's mind, highlighted by the stark reality of corporate politics. As Jack finished his proposal, a surge of vulnerability mixed with his excitement. By placing his vision and trust on the line, he was exposing himself to potential failure. Could he navigate this perilous situation? The stakes had never felt higher. With the proposal in hand, his next steps felt uncertain again, teetering on the edge of potential triumph or disaster. Jack took a deep breath, steeling himself. What would Mark's response reveal about his own journey toward growth, and could the very foundation of his corporate existence change in the process? Jack stood outside Mark's office, his neatly prepared proposal clutched tightly in his hand. The air was thick with tension as he considered not just the significance of the meeting, but the man he had become. Gone was the fearful executive, overwhelmed by corporate politics. In his place stood a leader ready to confront challenges with newfound clarity and purpose. He knocked, and Mark's voice grumbled from within, "Come in." As Jack entered, he sensed the familiar wariness in Mark's posture, an unyielding shield built from years in the industry. Jack's heart raced, but he steadied his breath. This wasn't merely an exchange of proposals. It was a challenge to test their respective visions for the company. "Jack," Mark greeted, his tone cool and inscrutable. "You wanted to discuss something?" "Yes," Jack replied, gaining momentum as he met Mark's gaze. "I've put together a proposal based on our conversation. It focuses on establishing a pilot program that enhances employee engagement while driving productivity. I believe it can bridge the gap you're concerned about." Mark leaned back, arms crossed defensively, an indication of skepticism. "Go on." "Incorporating metrics that matter to both of us is key," Jack continued, presenting the visuals he had crafted. Each slide illuminated tangible benefits, demonstrating how a more engaged workforce led to better overall performance. By measuring employee satisfaction alongside productivity, we'll not only engage our staff, but safeguard the company's reputation in the market. Just as we've discussed, if we invest in our people, the returns will speak for themselves. He watched closely as Mark's brow furrowed, showing the tiniest flicker of interest. "And what makes you think they'll embrace this?" "People are inherently wary of change." Jack met Mark's gaze with unwavering determination. Because I've talked to them. The employees want this. They deserve to feel valued in their work. And from the data I've gathered, companies that prioritize employee well-being see a marked increase in retention and productivity. He felt compelled to continue. I want to lead this change, but I need your support to make it happen. After a long moment of silence, Mark sighed, the tension easing slightly. You've put a significant effort into this. But do you think I can trust that it won't derail our primary objective? Trust takes time, Jack acknowledged. But let us start by piloting the program with a select team. If it can yield the results we expect, it sets a precedent for broader implementation. We'll evaluate it at 6-month intervals, ensuring full transparency and accountability. There was determination in Jack's voice that resonated, a stark contrast to the fear he had once felt in Mark's shadow. Mark considered his words, running a hand through his hair, revealing a hint of vulnerability. Okay, Jack, I'll give you this chance, but you need to keep me in the loop at all stages. I want to have you sidelining me on this. We need to deliver results, not just buzzwords. Understood, Jack replied, feeling a surge of elation mixed with sober responsibility. I appreciate your willingness to explore this. They exchanged a nod, a tentative agreement that shifted the atmosphere in the room. Jack left Mark's office, a weight lifted from his shoulders. He was filled with a sense of empowerment that came not just from winning a battle, but from embracing his values. The true victory was within. He had shifted from conflict to collaboration, establishing his position as a leader committed to ethical business practices. Over the next weeks, he collaborated with his team, inviting diverse voices to join him in shaping the pilot program as fabric. Together, they explored engagement strategies, uncovering innovative ways to connect with employees on more than just a transactional level. Ideas flowed. Energized by shared purpose, each meeting blossomed into a crucible of creativity and teamwork. As momentum built, Jack's confidence solidified. Employees began to engage more, their spirits lifting. Productivity metrics bared the fruit of their efforts. People felt recognized and valued. For the first time, Jack experienced the deep satisfaction of being a leader aligned with his principles. Days turned into weeks, bringing the pilot to fruition. Jack prepared for his upcoming presentation to the executive team, complete with data supporting the program's success, improved morale, reduced turnover, and rising productivity stats. This was his chance to present not just numbers, but the human impact of their initiative. As he stood in front of his colleagues, Jack recognized the significance of his journey. The tentative man who had once confined himself to the shadows of corporate struggle had evolved. He was no longer seeking validation through mere ambition. He was championing a cause rooted in compassion. Today, Jack began surveying the room. We're revitalizing what this company represents. Success can and must be kind, emphasizing the value of our most important asset, our people. I invite you to join me in laying down the foundation for a new corporate ethos, one where empathy drives both our mission and our bottom line. He spoke as if the weight of the corporate world had lifted, their faces reflecting a mixture of skepticism and hope. They heard not just a presentation, but a vision, a shift in the narrative where the heart of the company mattered as much as its profits. A.S. Jack concluded. The applause echoed through the room. But even more significant was the gleam of recognition in the eyes of his peers. His transformation had led to collective inspiration. He had not only redeemed his values, but had also ignited a spark in others, proving that real success stemmed from personal and professional integrity. In that moment, Jack knew that the journey had truly reshaped him as a leader, a father, and a human being. The penthouse that once felt like a cage now stood as a symbol of his growth, reflecting a future born from perseverance and purpose, transforming the corporate landscape one courageous decision at a time. Now, dear viewers, the journey doesn't end here. You need to subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. This is the moment to show your support. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and help more people discover these incredible tales of transformation. Be sure to comment your reactions and theories about the ending. Your voice matters. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion and inspire their own journeys.